Palm was watching his ally corner the enemy from above and thinking that all the conditions in order to safely fight the boss monster have been met. The main mission was to lead the enemy into the swamp in order to nullify its strength. The mud will help with eliminating the monster's strongest ability. Dumais, while looking at the boss monster, started asking it what's wrong and if it's frustrated about the holes on its face being clogged. Then, he swung his polearm straight into the enemy, keeping enough distance as to not be in danger of the enemy attack. But one hit wasn't enough to deal with such a durable monster, so he continued with a barrage of attacks. But the mad poisonous mushroom found an opening and tried to charge towards its attacker, but another one of the reason why the protagonist chose the swamp as the place to fight the boss, was also because it's the worst place for fast monsters. From the cliff, Palm launched another attack using his ability, Revolver. This time it cannot avoid it as it cannot move fast. Direct hit. Dumais was wondering if they defeated it, but seeing its shape in the smoke raised by the last attack, he had no choice but to acknowledge its resistance. The protagonist shouted at his ally to aim his attacks at the monster's core, which should be in the head. Dumais shouted back that he knows and swung his polearm again, keeping his distance. But this time, the boss monster caught the weapon, and pulled hard, which made his enemy to be pulled with it. Palm reacted fast and used his telekinesis to hit the mad poisonous mushroom with a log. Because the monster wasn't expecting such a move, it got hit right in the face, which also allowed Dumais to maneuver around his enemy, hit it again in the head, and ultimately escape to a safe distance. He also managed to recover his weapon. Then, using his speed and the debris from the swamp, stared to move around his target in order to find an opening for the next attack. But, he wasn't alone. Palm used his telekinesis to block the monster's vision. The mad poisonous mushroom saw his enemy through the water screen and attacked, but no one was there. Dumais was behind, swinging his polearm with all his might. And the head of the boss monster was cut off in one swing. The body was still standing, full of wounds from the long battle, but the head was sinking in the swamp. The polearm user was out of breath, and with the last of his energy gave his ally a thumbs up. The protagonist was satisfied with his teammate's performance, but the monster was still alive. It came behind Dumais, and hit him with all its might, knocking out the young warrior. It then released a loud shriek. While he was preparing an attack, the protagonist couldn't believe that the monster is still alive. The core should be in the head. The boss monster rushed towards the man on the cliff using the debris in the swamp, but Palm was using every trick in the book to slow down the enemy's advance. The monster jumped towards the cliff and grabbed on. It was advancing fast towards its target. Looking at it, the protagonist was thinking that he can shoot just one more revolver shot, but he cannot shoot it anywhere. He needs to find the core. In the meantime, Dumais woke up, and he was pissed about being ambushed. He then threw his polearm as hard as he could towards the mad poisonous mushroom who was still climbing the cliff. The monster was hit and cut in half. The lower half fell into the swamp, but the upper part continued climbing like nothing happened. Palm shot a fire arrow towards the monster, but it managed to avoid getting hit. Then, the mad poisonous mushroom showed its real head. That last attack was from a signal flare. The protagonist thanked the monster for showing its real head. Then, after charging his spell, shot the boss monster with the ability Revolver, sending it flying back into the swamp, finally piercing the core. But the monster left them with a final gift. It exploded in a cloud of poison. Dumais has stated that it's being a pain all the way to the end. Palm used his telekinesis and grabbed his teammate in order to save him from the rushing poison. The polearm user was grateful to his savior, as he thought that he's going to die down there. The entire swamp was filled with the poison released by the boss monster. Dumais asked his ally if it's finally over, to which he received a positive answer. The protagonist started saying that his teammate did well and that they will grab the mana stone of the monster after the poison clears. Then a shape passed right by him. It was the upper part of the mad poisonous mushroom. How could it still be alive? The core was heavily damaged. The last thing the monster wanted to do was to explode its core and take with it the ones who dared to kill it. Finding himself in this situation, all Dumais could do was to laugh. At the Gaffer Merchant Union, Sir Rakan was laughing because his subordinate returned before the raid was even declared a failure. He then said that he never changed, especially that bad temper. Abby's apologized and then wanted to say something about the Cygnus Knights, but was interrupted by a knock at the door. That made him shout that he doesn't want to be interrupted. The one who knocked announced that he's entering. This shocked the two men. It was the protagonist. He returned from the raid. That put a huge smile on Rakan's face, as he found the situation very interesting. He then asked Mr. Abbeys what is going on. Did someone rise from the grave? Looking at the protagonist, presented himself as Rakan and stated that he admires the adventurer's survival skills and he is the person that they need at Gaffer. Alpom thanked the man for the praise. Rakan said that he's going to ask only one question: can he show those impressive skills again during the 100-man raid? The answer that he got was that it will be tough. That answer left Rakan without any other words, but it pissed off Mr. Abbeys. The union representative was shouting that the protagonist needs to be more respectful, and as an adventurer he cannot just pick and choose his missions. He also needs to pay of his department. With a smile on his face, Rakan stated that Elpom didn't say that the mission is impossible, and because he doesn't like to beat around the bush, we'll ask the next question: how much do you want? Dibwa spit out his drink out of shock. Then he asked his teammate if he actually said 5 million meso per person. Since it's two of them, that means 10 million meso. That's too much. Elpom was covered in his teammate's drink, who apologized. Dibwa then continued asking if the protagonist isn't being too greedy, because the ones who offered them the mission will decline. While wiping himself, he said that it will be their employer's decision to accept the contract or not. The polearm user stated that his teammate is too relaxed about this situation. They might be put in the black book if the offer falls through. Then, two acquaintances showed up before them, saying that the two young men look like they're having fun, unlike themselves. Hearing this, Dibwa was ready for a fight. He shouted that this is not how you thank someone for saving your life, then invited the other man outside to fight. But the two adventurers bowed and apologized. Iburu stated that he misjudged his saviors and because of that he is ashamed to call himself an adventurer, so he offers his honest apology. Then he handed the hothead a sack of money while saying that it's the 1.5 million mesos from the 30 people they saved from the Red Gate raid. They also pitched in a little bit extra. Alpom interjected by saying that they don't want it. They agreed only on the 1.5 million mesos. And did the work he was paid to do, so they don't need thanks money. Those comments surprised the two adventurers. This wasn't the reaction they were expecting. Dibwa stated that he got excited for nothing and then muttered that he will count the money. The protagonist looked at Iburu and asked if he can do the work he's paid to do. Back at the Gaffer Merchant Union, Mr. Abbeys was saying that Rakan shouldn't pay 10 million mesos. That's an amount of money you usually pay third or fourth circle adventurers. Plus, agreeing to these conditions might create a bad precedent, even if Elpom is one of the best candidates. It's possible that he asked for that amount of money to test the water. They should renegotiate. Rakan asked if it's truly the case, as the protagonist might ask for twice the amount. Abbeys became confused after hearing that statement, then was handed a piece of paper to read it. While the union representative was reading the paper, Sir Rakan added that they will only send Elpom's party to represent Gaffer. Something caught Abbeys' attention in the paper he was reading, then asked his superior if it's real. The man in front of him answered that it would be troubling if it wasn't true, as he paid a lot of money for the information. It was about a certain person called Dark Lord Jean. Sir Rakan put on a serious face and stated that the war already started. A couple of days later, at the huge 100-man Red Gate, people were camping, waiting for everyone to arrive in order to start the raid. Elpom and Dibwa also arrived, and the latter was expressing his surprise that the Gaffer Merchant Union accepted their terms. The protagonist asked his teammate to focus, and the answer was to not worry because he is also an experienced adventurer now. Looking around themselves, they noticed that everyone was throwing unfriendly looks, which made Dibwa say that the atmosphere isn't the best. Then, a man who seemed friendly presented himself as Shuden from Guinness Merchant Union, an E-class adventurer. and greeted the two adventurers from the Gaffer Merchant Union. The protagonist presented himself as a C-class adventurer, which made the student think that he's higher than 2 circles, because C-class adventurers are usually 3 circles and higher. Then, they got interrupted by someone who asked for some space. It was a blonde woman asking to talk with the party sent by Gaffer. The E-class adventurer left disappointed, seeing that the two groups were associated. L. Palm remembered talking with Abby's about doing something that he didn't want it to do. The union representative was insistent that the young adventurer should just do what he is told, because the Gaffer Merchant Union will be working with the Cygnus Knight Order to clear the 100-man gate. They follow the teachings of Empress Cygnus, and are the strongest group. Mr. Abbeys was saying that the quota for the gate was taken by the other Merchant Union adventurers, so they will have to work with the Cygnus Knights. Even if it's only their trainee knights, the probability of success will be higher. Even if they may have ulterior motives, the offer they made to work together isn't bad. The protagonist then agreed, if it's just a cooperation. Which made the union representative say that it might not be that easy, because something about them seems off. The blonde woman presented herself as Kiri, the leader of the Cygnus Knights trainees. She also stated that she's of higher status than them and all they have to do is to listen and follow her orders. Hearing this, Dibwa was thinking that she has a serious attitude problem. Kiri continued by asking if the two men are the only adventurers sent by the Gaffer Merchant Union, to which she received a positive answer. She then added that Gaffer might have given up if they only sent 2 adventurers. Then, 2 adventurers' parties appeared, Crocus Party of the Dig Merchant Union and Cubal's Party of the Merdya Merchant Union. The elites of the respective merchant unions. Another party that showed up was the famous 3 Natasha sisters of the Goldrich Merchant Union. Looking at them, Kiri stated that they're acting cocky. A man announced that everyone arrived and then presented himself as Lonko, the guard of the raid. Him and his team are there to offer support when everyone is exiting the gate. He also added that even if their merchant unions explain the process, he will explain again. The items that come out of the gate aren't owned by the adventurers that obtained them, but by their respective merchant unions. The adventurers are paid based on the contract signed with their employers. They should be happy that at least they can keep the mana stones. If anyone is caught trying to pocket one of the items, they'll have to face their party of B-class adventurers. Dibwa noticed the number of circles on the hand of one of the adventurers and was wondering if everyone in that team was a 5-circle. With the announcement concluded, the raid started and the adventurers entered the gate. Kiri announced that she will be in the lead and El Palm's party should follow, as they will be the ones to succeed. Dibwa was really unhappy with the blonde woman's attitude and started saying that he doesn't want to work with her. But the protagonist was thinking that he finally got here, this is a gate he didn't raid in his previous life. He needs to succeed because this is where everything starts. Then, the 2 men also went on to enter the gate. Dibwa was saying that he will not help the Cygnus Knights, even if they beg for help. Everyone was slowly entering the gate domain, then moving out to explore the area. While moving away from the gate entrance, Dibwa was expressing his amazement as he never saw grass this big. Kiri stated that they're not here for sightseeing and to keep on and not lag behind. Hearing those words, the polearm user asked his teammate if they should keep tolerating this treatment from those bastards. After he turned towards him, noticed that the protagonist was kneeling down, close to the ground, and asked what is he doing. A noise could be heard coming from the tall grass, and looking towards it, the adventurers noticed a wall of dust rising from a distance. It was the ribbon pigs. There were probably at least over 1,000 of them. Seeing this, Kiri started screaming that everyone should spread out as there are still parties entering the gate. There is the unwritten rule to not draw danger towards the gate. A lot of chaos was created due to the sudden attack of the monsters. The parties weren't following their leaders anymore and everyone was just going their own way. A group of monsters were chasing after the Cygnus Knights trainees. While running, Kiri announced that they will bait the pigs in a place with many obstacles and hunt them there. Then, one of the trainees said that the Gaffer Merchant Union party is not with them, making the blonde woman act surprised. In the meantime, the 2 men were safe, away from the pigs. Dibwa stated that they can relax now, and asked his ally how did he know that the monsters will come stampeding. Palm answered that based on his experience, there are many herds of beasts that travel across plains just like the one they were in. Ribbon pigs are monsters of around 2 meters in length, with an aggressive personality. They usually travel in groups that consist of hundreds or even thousands. Palm was thinking that the ribbon pigs aren't hard to hunt, it's just tough to deal with their high number. The other parties should be able to deal with them. But most adventurers will try to save energy and will try to avoid a confrontation this early on, since nobody knows what other monsters they'll run into. There is no way that they only have to fight ribbon pigs. In his previous life, the 100-man gate raid failed and all the adventurers died. Dibwa asked the protagonist what is he thinking so hard about, and didn't notice when he walked into a trap. His teammates saved him right in time to not get stabbed. The shaken polearm user asked in a trembling voice who would create such a trap. In another place, another adventurer was walking into a trap, but he was a veteran, such a slow and basic trap was nothing for him. He told his party that this trap was quite childish, and one of his teammates reported that he took care of the other traps. Then Crocus, the party leader, told them to not let their guard down. While these traps are small, they can still kill on the spot. The creators of these traps seem to copy humans. They aren't regular monsters as they show a high degree of intelligence. Which means that they're most probably Hobs. They are difficult to deal with as they're equivalent to a boss monster in a red gate. Now they have an idea of what they are dealing with. The difficulty is surely quite high, but because there are also talented adventurers in this raid, they have a chance. Crocus then ordered his party to follow him in order to make use of the information they got. But they heard some noise behind them, the head of one of his teammates was already cut off. The rest of his team was dealt with in less than a moment, they were all dead, and before he could make sense of what was going on, his head was also rolling on the floor. His killer was calling him a dumbass for acting like he knows everything. In the tall grass field, a man was saying that he doesn't know whose idea was to use the ribbon pigs to distract everyone, but it was a good idea, as it gave them a good opportunity to start working, which is quite bothersome. But they are short on time, so he should also get started. Behind him, the Natasha sisters were like frozen in time. The mysterious man stated that it's no use in trying to move because it's the type of magic that it can freeze them in place for at least 30 minutes. Then, with a weak voice, one of the sisters asked why is the man doing something like this. He answered that she's amazing, being able to speak while under the effect of his spell, but since she seems to be dangerous, they'll just have to get rid of her right away. The other two sisters were terrified by the events that were unfolding in front of them. After killing one of the sisters, the mysterious man answered that the question asked by the deceased is quite hard, why is he actually doing this? Activating his magic staff, he stated that it might be easier if he put it like this. Everything that he's doing is for the black magician. He then casted fire arrow, leaving a mess behind. Noticing that someone passed through the gate again, he stated that there is no end to this, he only wants to laze around. The mysterious man, by the name of William, remembered how he was kneeling in front of a man with white hair, who was saying that they waited quietly for a long time, hiding, growing in strength and spreading everywhere. The time to finally reap the fruits of their efforts has finally arrived. Hearing this, William stated that he will not disappoint. The white-haired man offered a gift, provided by a certain person, and stated that he won't accept failures. That memory was a reminder to why he cannot half-ass this mission. He needs to get a bit more serious in order for everything to work out the way is intended. Sometime later, at night, the main party was staking a wooden fortress created by the Hobs. There were a lot of monsters patrolling the area. Dibwa was surprised by what he was seeing. He then asked his teammate if all of them are actually at the level of a boss monster. To which, the protagonist answered that he already explained that. There is only one boss monster among them. But all of them are strong and have a lot of stamina, which makes it hard to fight them. Plus they seem to have looted some items from the dead adventurers, so now they are a bigger pain to deal with, since some of them can use skills through the items. Dibwa then said that it will be like facing an army of adventurers and there's just two of them. Palm answered that his ally catches on fast. Dibwa continued saying that it will be impossible, they need to join up with Kiki or Kiri or whatever was her name. The protagonist said that he thought that they both wanted to work separately from the knights, and the polearm user answered that this was before he knew what they were dealing with. A bit later, a hob left the fortress with 2 bags and started walking through the forest. At one point he noticed something coming from behind. It was Dumais swinging his polearm with all his strength. But the monster dodged the attack. The man was frustrated that he had to take on the hob alone. Then the creature went for a counter-attack, but Dumais was faster and managed to maneuver around the big monster. The young man landed on his fight after that close encounter with the monster's punch. But then it was chased around by the hob, who was throwing a flurry of punches towards him, the adventurer, closely avoiding each and every one of them. Getting tired of running around, found an opening and hit his attacker in the head while cursing him, then, followed with a slash towards the monster's leg, the big creature dropping to the ground. As to not lose his advantage, Dumais went for another slash from behind the enemy, but the hob was fast and the attack was wasted. It was the monster's turn to go on to the attack. The young man wasn't ready and he got punched hard and sent flying into a tree. The polearm user was getting frustrated because his opponent was more resilient than any monster he encountered until now. The beast went for another attack, but Dumais managed to dodge in time. He then found another opening, and cut off the hob's left hand. But the fight wasn't over, the big monster grabbed the man's head, and then bashed him into the ground. None of them was ready to give up. Both were fighting with everything they had. After escaping his opponent's grasp, Dumais put on some distance between each other. Then, he jumped back in, with everything he got, for one last hit. The fight was over. Dumais asked his teammate why didn't he help. Elpom answered that it looked like he could handle it alone. Plus, he got the experience of taking one of them down by himself, but the hothead wasn't satisfied with that answer. He was actually doubting the mission because there was an army of those monsters. Then, they found themselves next to what seemed like a battlefield. The dead, all seemed to be the from Cygnus Knight's order. One of them was still alive. Dumais noticed the struggling man and informed his teammate about it. The survivor was one of the Cygnus Knight's trainees, but he was badly wounded. Walking towards him, the protagonist asked what happened and if it was the Hobs who attacked them. The survivor answered that it wasn't anything like that, it was a trolling. Some people enter the gates with the purpose to collect information and attack other adventurers. And because the gate disappears after they escape, the wrongdoings disappear with it. However, this time is different, because the gate wasn't cleared yet and if they want to gain powerful items, they have to confront the powerful Hobs. And even if they succeed, there are powerful adventurers waiting outside the gate. Are they trying to kill the elites of all the merchant unions? But that doesn't make sense because it's like declaring war on all the unions without gaining anything. There must be something more to it. Dumais asked Elpom if it could actually be a trolling, to which he answered that it could. They then noticed that the blonde woman wasn't among the corpses. The wounded man got on his knees and started saying that it's all his fault for not noticing that they had a traitor among them, especially when it was the leader of the group. The protagonist couldn't understand how one of the Cygnus Knights became a trolling. The survivor answered that he also doesn't understand, but if he thinks about it, the orders she gave at the entrance of the gate seemed to be part of her plan. Also, before finishing up, she said it herself, that she's a follower of the Black Magician. That statement surprised Dumais. 800 years ago, the Black Magician, who was a transcendent, threatened the Maple World with his many followers. In order to stop him, the 6 heroes took charge and turned the fight against the evil mage and his followers and was sealed. With the follower army in chaos, the allied forces pushed back and cleared out all the remaining followers of the Black Magician. Dumais couldn't believe that Kiri was a follower of the Black Magician. Then Elpom stated that it's not time to worry about monsters, they have to find her. And then asked if the survivor wants to join them, because he needs to prepare to fight the traitor. The wounded knight answered that it's all he wants to do. Kiri, the leader of the Cygnus Knight's trainees, who were almost all dead, was running, when she encountered William, the follower of the Black Magician. He stated that he was waiting for her, together with his allies. He then stated that she was the one who dealt with the ribbon pigs, and they had an easy job dealing with the adventurers who were split up. Then, He asked if she received the present they sent for her. With a defiant look on her face, she asked who are they. Dubois and the survivor were walking together through the forest. Dubois was saying that they can slow down if the wounds are hurting. The protagonist already went ahead. The survivor answered that he is fine. Then the polearm user continued that his teammate is amazing at scouting, it's more than sure that they will find her soon. The wounded man answered that it's good to hear that, while holding a cursed knife in his hand. In the vast plains, at dawn, Kiri the knight was fighting the followers of the black magician. Watching from a side, William was saying that she is amazing, but this is expected from a training captain of the Cygnus Knights. But how long will she be able to keep this up? After all, she is at a disadvantage. They have more men. The female knight activated her special ability, Rising Sun, then, another adventurer attacked from above. She parried the attack of her opponent, then, because she was faster, killed the follower of the magician using her skill Solar Slash. The blonde woman was tired from the long battle, but threatened to kill her enemies if they don't state their purpose. William called her noisy and asked his allies to stop slacking and kill her. At that moment, a group of the enemy adventurers attacked the knight all at once, but, from the tall grass, another adventurer jumped on the side of Kiri and decimated the opponents in one brutal slash. That surprised the tired Cygnus knight. It was Dubois, the polearm user, who saved her, someone who she never expected. Back to the past, when Dubois was telling the survivor that Elpalm is great at finding people, and that they will soon find Kiri, the wounded man got his knife ready and then tried to stab the polearm user while saying that he sends his regards to female knight. But he got his hand blown off before he could do anything else. The protagonist stopped the attacker with one of his fire arrows. Dubois was confused and asked his teammate what is going on. Elpalm answered that it's as he expected, an awful act. Because he doesn't usually trust people, was able to see right through it. Back to the present, William was saying that it's unexpected for an uninvited guest to just pop up. One of the black magician followers stated that the guest is from the Gaffer Merchant Union, which means that Pitten, the wounded man, failed his mission. Even after he received a second chance, to make up for losing to Lady Kirin. Now, because both of them are looking quite strong, the fight will be annoying, so they will have to use their elite adventurers to take them out. Kirin, the knight, started to shout at Dubois to be careful because those people are dangerous. He answered that he knows, they are perverts, correct? The mage declared that they will finish this fast, then sent everyone to attack. Dubois asked Kirin to take on one of them while he handles the rest, and she said to not let his guard down. One of the enemy adventurers used his ability, Savage Blow, but the polearm user dodged out of the way, then swung his weapon against him, but he managed to avoid the attack. At that moment, another adventurer shot her fire arrow towards Dubois, who barely avoided getting pierced. While the hothead was busy calling his last attacker a cheap bastard, another adventurer managed to snuck behind him, and then attacked. It was a success, it managed to draw blood. But the wound was shallow. The follower of the black magician went for another attack, saying that he'll put his opponent out of his misery really soon. It was a leap attack from above. Seeing this, the blonde knight was screaming towards Dubois, what is he doing? The polearm user wasn't that easy to take down. He got behind his enemy and answered that he's playing with the enemy, that's what he's doing. After that, he slashed the enemy adventurer is half with just one hit. Another opponent with a spear rushed towards him and attacked. But for Dubois, those attacks were too slow to do any damage. With another slash, he sent the enemy adventurer flying back. The spear user was impressed by how strong his opponent was. But he didn't have much time to think, because the knife-wielding adventurer, Shuden, was sent flying by Kiri, who stated that these followers of the black magician cannot be called elites. Those comments pissed of the enemy adventurers, and William decided that it's time for him to join the battle. Then, while drawing his fire arrow, stated that this is where the battle ends, because they wasted already enough time. The fire arrow was shot towards Dubois, and as it was approaching his head, he realized that this spell is faster than the spells fired by his teammate. The fire arrow exploded, and the mage started saying that his fire arrows are on another level, so you cannot drop your guard when he's around. But the fight wasn't over. El Palm showed up just in time to block the last attack. One of the enemies asked who is he, and the answer was that he isn't the only guest. Then pointed with his telekinesis finger at the tall grass, from where a group of ribbon pigs showed up. It was a big group of trampling monsters that went straight towards the followers of the Black Magician. Thank you for watching the third part of the Last Adventurer series. If you enjoyed it, please drop a like and subscribe for more content. Also leave a comment if you want to be stepped on by Kiri. Goodbye.